10 out of 100, yeah. This would be bad. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, go ahead, have your notes. We're going to continue with the causes leading up to World War I. As I recall, we got through the whole German thing and how Kaiser Wilhelm II really started to irritate the British because he wanted an empire. Got that? And then, of course, the French are like, hey, Britain, you can join with us. And so they form up an alliance. So now we got Britain and France getting ready to go tangle with Germany. All right, so there, what are we missing now in that British-French? Oh, the Russia part. To understand how Russia then will break from an alliance with Germany and Austria, we need to get into the details of what is going on with Austria and Russia, because that is going to be, it's kind of like, I don't know, if you ever had like two good friends and then they don't like each other, and you're like, oh, this isn't going to work out very well, and you want to kind of keep both, but that's not going to work out, so which one do you keep? Well, with Germany, they're friends with Russia and Austria, and Russia and Austria, as I'm going to get into the details, are going to have a fight, and it's going to be a big one. And who is Germany going to remain allies with? Austria. Okay? So that's how it's going to play out. So let's see how this drama comes. I mean, literally, one of the things, I think it'll take some time in class, they've got this great sequence, and it's, what if World War I was a bar fight? I mean, they literally, if World War I was a bar fight, it's kind of crazy. You got all these different characters and so forth, and I don't think we'll have time in class to show all the different like student videos that they did if World War I was a bar fight, because that's like a real cool theme. But yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, you've got this and this. Yeah, no, if you're in one, it's not, because it's like, I mean, here's the thing. They'll have, you know, Germany is looking at France and Britain and then punches Belgium. I mean, it's like, what the heck? I mean, literally, that's how it starts, because Belgium's like, I'm neutral, you know, I'm small, I'm trying to stay out of this. What the heck? Yes. I've never seen World War II as a bar fight. World War II is like Hitler going, man, I want some prime revenge. Be prepared for my vengeance. That was, we'll get to that. That was, well, here's the deal. Here's a quick answer. You ready? Japan, as you'll see, was attacking lots of parts of Asia, because we've already identified Japan as a, we're going to build an empire, and poor old China is going to get punch, 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 and some other areas too. The United States basically puts a kink in the oil. No, because that's like, it's like we're not declaring war, but we're limiting their ability to fight a war. So they figure they're just going to go ahead and go, we don't think the United States wants to fight a war. Boom, we're going to hit them real hard, and they'll be like, woo, okay, sorry, we'll back off to the other side of the Pacific. Didn't work out that way, no. Yeah, one of their top admirals said, you're going to wake a sleeping giant, and that's what happened. Yeah. So it didn't work out so well for Japan. But that wasn't just sort of like they're walking along, and all of a sudden they're like, let's hit the most powerful military economy in the world. Yeah, even if it is after 10 or so years of economic depression, not a smart idea. But we'll get to that, okay? We'll get to all that. We'll get to all that. All right, so here's the deal. To understand how the Austrian friendship with Russia breaks apart, you have to understand various different things. You ready? Write this down. Austria, or Austria-Hungary, as it's changed its name to make the Hungarians happy being part of this ethnic, national, diverse country. They've got a lot of different diversities within that. And you're looking at this map. This basically shows you the different ethnic, national groups that are there. Okay, you ready? Here's a color code, because you can't read the things, it's too small. The red areas are German-speaking. So if you look at the current boundary of Austria, that's mostly German-speaking. And you've got some other ones up there where Oskar Schindler lives. We'll talk more about those German speakers there, and some bits and pieces here and there. So you can see, first of all, write it down. The Austrian Empire is not mostly Austrian. It's only Austrian in part of it. The green is Hungarian. Okay, so that's a significant one. You've got bits and pieces and so forth, mostly concentrated right here, although you have other parts in other places too. Okay? The light blue is Czech or Bohemian. Okay? And they're kind of like, hey, the Hungarians got to add their name to the country. Maybe it should be Austria, Hungary, Czech or something. And then the Slovaks they're kind of like the dark brown here. They're like, hey, we're Slovaks. We're part of the country too. Maybe we should be our own country. Oh my gosh. I always get this one mixed up. Let me look at that one. Oh, yeah, here we go. Orange is like Ukrainians, and purple are Poles. Okay? Then you've got Romanians over here, this particular brown group, as opposed to that particular brown group. That doesn't really help. It's like they're using the same thing. And then we got Slovenians over here. The yellow are Italians. And this, you're like, let's be real. If you were to actually look at this, you would see it's not just sort of like, one group. No. There's Croats, who are Catholic. There are Bosniaks, who are Muslim. And there are Serbs, Bosnian Serbs, who are Orthodox. Yeah. And of course, right over here, you've got a whole other country, Serbia. And that's where things are going to start getting kind of crazy. So, write this down. The Austro-Hungarian Empire has already got problems with growing nationalism. Nationalism created Germany. It brought those pieces together to create Germany. Nationalism threatens to break apart the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And in fact, by the end of World War I, you know what Austria is going to have left over? Just Austria. Everything else will be a new country or part of another existing country. Whatever. I mean, it's like, yeah, they weren't able to kind of tie it all together. Is the United States one nation, or are we a hodgepodge of various different ethnic national groups that is basically tied together very, very, not so good? I mean, I think we've only had, it's like we get tested during election seasons. 1860 didn't work out so well. The South was like, we're out of here. And then there was a war, yada, yada. But we all come back together. World War I is not going to work out for the Austrians. So, what ultimately causes the great friction? It has to do, write this down, with the decline of the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire, the Turks, they had been big. Their heyday was like in the 1600s. Okay, so their heyday was a long time ago. The Ottoman Empire is referred to in the 1800s, especially as we go into the 1900s, as the old sick man of Europe. They're not industrialized. They're having a real hard time hanging on to territories that have people living in them that are not Turkish. We'll get to it later as far as like their Arab-speaking territories, Arab-speaking territories. I mean, they're Muslim, but as far as that's concerned, they want to be out of there. And Southeast Europe, that they had controlled going into the 1800s, is mostly not Muslim, with the exception of some Muslims in Albania, in Kosovo, and parts of Bosnia. So they start falling apart. You can write this down. In the early 1800s, Greece was the first one to gain independence from the Ottoman Empire. Whoa! Greece becomes a country. And over time, then you get new countries coming into existence as the Ottomans can't hang on to it. You get Bulgaria being formed. Yeah. You get Romania being formed. Yeah. You get, significantly, Serbia being formed. Okay? And the Serbs are Slavic background. Specifically, they are Orthodox. So they have some things in common. With the Poles, they have their Slavic, but Poles are mostly Catholic. Okay? Their biggest connection, write this down, their biggest sort of connection is their big brother. The biggest Slavic group out there. The biggest Orthodox group out there. Exactly, Russia. Exactly. And so the Russians always look in on their Serb new little country. They're sort of like cousins and so forth, and they're very supportive, and they got their back, right? So I always sometimes analogize this to, I don't know, if you were like in grade school, imagine someday in the future, you're a parent, you've got a child that's just really interested in things, and they're very assertive, and one day, they come back from school and they say, I got into a fight, and I said that you were going to beat up that kid's dad. And you're like, I know that kid's dad. Basically, it boils down to this. Serbia is going to drag the bigger country, Russia, into World War I. Similarly, in a sense, Austria, I mean, it's a big country, but it's not the most powerful of the two when it comes to Austria and Germany. Austria will bring Germany into World War I. Because Germany and Russia are like, hey, cool, we used to be allies, but because of the separation, it's going to be a problem. All right? Here's the deal. Take a look. Serbia. They think that they should be part of a larger country with other Slavic people. Now, some of those other Slavic people are actually Orthodox, and they would identify themselves as Serbs. Write it down. In the region known as Bosnia, there's a lot of Serbs there. And they're like, hey, we should be part of Serbia. Well, are they complaining against the Turks? No. Who grabbed that territory from the Turks? Austria did. Austria took Bosnia. Austria expanded. They're like, what the heck? We don't mind expanding our boundaries. We don't mind having people of other ethnicities besides German and so forth into our boundaries. That's all cool. So here is, Austria has that territory. And so they took it from the Turks. And who is demanding that Austria hand that over? Serbia. I mean, where are they coming from? Who and what army is going to defeat the Austrians and take that territory? So the thing is it's not going to be a big war, but sometimes people take things into their own hands. It's not like, you got, I don't know, at the beginning of this century, there was Islamic extremists that were really, really mad at the United States of America. We don't like you doing this, that, and so forth. What, are they going to declare war? No, but they didn't attack. There's a lot of analogies here. They didn't attack, right? They got some guys into our country. They took over 4 airplanes and they crashed them into buildings. 9/11, hello? We were mad about that. Did we go to war after that? Yeah, we did. We actually did. What country did we overthrow the government of because that government had been supportive and helpful of those same terrorist al-Qaeda groups? Afghanistan, exactly. So the analogy is actually pretty apt. Serbia is putting a lot of pressure on Austria and giving support to a group of people known as the Black Hand. Okay? It's not like they're sort of having it both ways. They're like, well, we're not officially in support of the Black Hand, a active militant group that's operating in the Bosnian area. But they're not doing anything to crack down on it. And in the midst of that, a really poor series of decisions is made. The top guy, actually his dad is the top guy, but he's really next in line. I mean, he's not vice president. He's the Archduke. He's the son of the Emperor of Austria. And he's been calling a lot of the shots because his dad is really, really old. You understand how that is? So he goes with his wife to Bosnia, to this main city called Sarajevo, to have a visit and to sort of say, hey, I'm chilling and everything's cool and so forth. You have to watch your calendar because sometimes there's certain days you really don't want to show up because it might be really super emotional. As it turns out, on the day that they visit, let me double check on that day, June 28th, there we go, June 28th, 1914. It's the anniversary of a major, major battle going way back between the Serbs and the Turks, that the Turks won. But I tell you what, sometimes people remember victories. The Serbs remember defeats. And that was just a very important day for them. And here, in the midst of that, in the area, near the area where the battle had taken place, the Archduke shows up for that visit. We'll see that later on next year because it's kind of are things going to be calm in the Balkans, in that region, in the 20th century? No, it's going to be one of the genocide episodes. Yeah, it's going to be really bad. And it's associated with that day because what happens on that day? They come visit. They should have known. They should have had security. Good grief. There were Black Hand assassins all over the place. I mean, it's just this failure of proper security. Some of the Black Hand assassins actually try and fail, right? And so this guy's going around in an open car. They try and fail. And they're like, well, we still got to do that speech. And so they go ahead and do the speech. And then they're driving around. They don't even know where they're going. They're going down back alleys and this way and so forth. And this one guy, Prince Sepp, he's hanging at a table, and he's like, oh, look, there's the emperor's car. Oh, what good fortune for me and bad for him and his wife. He gets another chance. He runs over, and he shoots his gun and kills the the Archduke and his wife. Yeah, and he's caught. I mean, he's caught because, like, there's some security people around, and they're able to capture the guy after the fact. Okay? So this is bad. All right? So the Austrian government gives an ultimatum to Serbia, because they're like, Serbia, you're the problem here. A lot of sympathy from all over, including Russia, is with the Austrians. But the Austrians are like, man, Serbia, you have to do this and this and this and this and this. And Serbia's like, okay, but we're not going to give up our entire country. I mean, hello. After a month passes and some of that like anger sort of subsides a bit, Russia gives its support to Serbia. And since Serbia doesn't give in on all the things that Austria wants it to, you know there's going to be war. And there will be. July 28th, a month after the assassination, Austria declares war on Serbia. And if Austria declares war on Serbia, what does that mean? You got Russia going to the back and supporting Serbia. And if Russia is supporting Serbia against Austria, what does Austria have to back itself up? Germany, very good. And if Germany and Austria now are fighting Serbia and Russia, who's going to back up Russia? Oh, did I tell you? Oh, I need to tell you this. After Russia was so furious with all of this shenanigans going on and so forth here, they're like, forget the Emperor's League. That's over. Write it down. The Emperor's League is over before World War I. That was the one between Austria, Germany, and Russia. Russia joined a new alliance before World War I called the Triple Entente. Make sure you have that down. You see that in there? The Triple Entente. It's a French word which tells you that France is part of it. And the other two key parts are Britain and Russia. The Triple Entente is France. Do you see that in short-term causes, Britain, France, and Russia? In your handout? So once you got that alliance there, and we intimated that was going to be coming, and what drove Russia into that alliance was the problems it was having with Austria. And so they're like, I'm not going to be part of an alliance with Austria, so therefore they left the alliance with Austria and Germany, joined the alliance with Britain and France. So what's going to happen at the beginning of World War I? Russia is going to be on the side of Britain and France. Okay? And so then, where does the fighting start? Russia is not a highly mechanized industrial country. It's going to take them a while to mobilize. And the Germans know this. So Germany has a plan. It's called the Schlieffen Plan. Okay? The Schlieffen Plan. We got these guys in the videos already. Jean Jaurès, the socialist who was trying to stop the war from taking place. Good luck with that. And, of course, the artist Ludwig Meidner, the German painter who almost had like a vision of how things were actually going to be. And if you look at the video of the war, you're like, yeah, I think it was kind of like that, and so forth. Anyway, here's the plan. German General Schlieffen came up with this plan before, looks like sleeping, Schlieffen, he came up with this plan before World War I. I don't think he's even around at the time World War I comes along. And it actually is a well thought out plan if everything comes together just the way the Germans think it will. It didn't quite, because it's based primarily on the success the Germans had in the Franco-Prussian War, where they hit the French forces. Now, the French forces got pushed back along the border, but the French, after that time, they built up a lot of fortifications along their border with Germany. You got that? So they're heavily fortified. Well, what border are they not heavily fortified? What border does France not heavily fortify? The Belgian border. And so the Belgian border is going to be an opening. And here's what Germany decides they're going to do. Here's their plan. They invade neutral Belgium and Luxembourg. The goal is to hit through there, surprise the French, sweep around really quick, like they did in the Franco-Prussian War, take Paris, knock the French and therefore the British out of the war, then take their armies, swing them back over, and fight the Russians and beat the Russians. Is that how it played out? No. Because, as we will see more next time, the technological advances that had taken place in military weaponry by this time in history favor the defense. The Germans are only going to get so far. And eventually you will have trenches, and eventually you will have machine guns, eventually you will have sniper rifles, you will have the defenders have those advantages. So if you try to make an assault on those guys, you're going to get mowed down. And that's why the Western Front is going to end up being a stalemate in northern France and parts of Belgium throughout the entirety of the war. We will spell those out. Yeah, we'll talk about how the artillery is going to play an important role for the offense, but not enough, because the defense, you got barbed wire. Even if you blow it up, you're still going to have guys with machine guns on defense mowing you down, and sniper rifles mowing you down. And even though they introduce mustard gas, we'll get to all these next time. Even though they introduce mustard gas, it's not going to ultimately make the difference. Tanks, too small, not enough. Airplanes, not enough. You'll see those play a big role in World War II. And dirigibles, hello. Yeah, those are cool. Yeah, it's like Led Zeppelin. Yeah, that makes a big difference. And we'll talk about shell shock next time, too. Okay? Yeah, it's like when you're getting bombarded day after day after day, it kind of has an impact on your nerves, especially when you're hanging out with lots of dead bodies and corpses and so forth. It was not fun. No. But that's where we're going to do. Nature of the war and technological advances. Speaking of technological advances, wipe down your desks and have a good, safe day. Lovely.